Hi, this is Real Audio, and today we are talking about taboo music. Some music genres that audiophiles never listen to, and I never heard them these types of music played on any audiophile system. Usually, if you go to shows, this is not being played. You are not going to hear it, and that's basically like trance, rave, house, electronica music. I just call it this way. I don't know what's the proper way to call them, but we could say like party music, like big loud party music. And on the audiophile system, usually the serious salesman tell you, wow, that music is not refined enough, it's not sophisticated, it's not even music, it's just some art pop culture thing today that people do, and only those people, they are on drugs, you should not even mix with them, and that's not proper music for proper people. But I think that's a ton of BS, because uh, that kind of music, it can sound absolutely amazing, and but it requires a sound system that is able to reproduce it. And just about 90 plus percent of audiophile systems are not qualified to reproduce it. There are certain things. Well, one of them, most important one that I have noticed, and what's my experience, maybe your experience is different, is that uh, it requires systems that have very low distortion, and that's just not happening. Audiophile systems are optimized to have low distortion at low to medium volumes, and when you are pushing the sound to like really loud, like a 90 plus dB listening level, it becomes really distorted. Especially high frequencies, they just messed up, like totally messed up. And um, and this kind of music requires a very linear system, and the requirements are for both for your amplifier and for your loudspeaker as well. And that's just not really happening in any price category. And it's not because, oh, my system is only $10,000, or maybe I just have a Bose wave radio, that's the problem. No, that's not the problem. The problem is that even when you look at like $1 million system, they still have issues with linearity at high volumes. So basically, to have a system that can play this type of music the way the artist intended, that's just such a good expression, with no one knows what it means. That you need a system that is capable to reproduce very high SPIs at very low distortion, and there is such a thing. And however, it's very rare. And even if you go to like big parties like that, most of the stereo system that's designed to reproduce this music, they have the wattage that can reproduce it, they have the SPL, but usually the highs are just so distorted that I think that's why people drink so much or even get drugs, because you just cannot bear to listen to that stuff for more than 5 minutes if you are in your right mind, and it's just impossible. However, as I have learned, this is not the case. So I'm going to share what I experienced with my voice of Lancelot speakers, because these are ultra efficient speakers, so they don't need much power to make them play super silly loud. And I'm using the amps, the push-pull amps I used with them, 20 watts of power. Actually, they have 20 watts with low distortion, but I measure that they can put out a stable 60 watts as well. So they have more juice, but you get really high uh, fidelity up to 20 watts, but even after that, you still have more reserves. So it allows you to play at a silly loud level that this music requires to have full effect. And why is that? That's because this type of music have very low frequency bass response. And for that to be audible or to be felt, you need that those really loud SPRs. And and when that happens, so that you have the ability to hear those low frequencies below 30 hertz, below 20 hertz, and the high frequencies are not distorting, then it becomes a completely different experience. And there's a lot of music that's not just like toots 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 like blowing your face up, but there's like musical complexity in it. But if the highs are distorted to hell and beyond, then you cannot enjoy those nuances in the music. That's a barrier. You need a nice linear accurate system that has the reserve, that has the ability to reproduce it. And I think that's kind of like the ultimate barrier in audio, to reproduce music on that scale, that at high SPR with low frequency, with high frequency, and all of them clear, that's just almost an impossible task. And you need like an almost impossible to system to reproduce it. But when you have that ability, then this will give you the access to these genre of music, which is normally accessible only if you are in an altered state of mind, because only then you can handle that distorted sound that it's usually being played with. And for me, uh, of course, when I was young, I loved to party, but in general, I have like kind of like I don't know, a refined sense of taste of music. So when I listening to music, I really like to get the depth of the music, to see, to experience the content behind it. And I was just absolutely stunned that after I built this wall, the Voice of Lancelot speakers, and just for fun, I just started playing music like that, and it just like a big eye opening, like, what? I never knew that this music is that. And when you that it's really music, it's not just noise, but there's music behind the noise. And it's just absolutely so let me say, I just wrote some stuff up. uh, uh, so here I just a few concrete examples that these are stuff that they are up on YouTube, so you can search for them, like Circle, Frisson, Side Chamber, Goblins from Mars. These are YouTube channels, and they have music which is like kind of like this type of music. So if you look them up, then you will have an idea what I'm talking about. Or if you are looking for people who made music, who are the names of musicians like Prodigy, Karin, or I would consider Kraftwerk in this category too, because when you experience Kraftwerk on this scale, on a scale that on a system that is capable to give you this trance music type of experience, and when you listen to Kraftwerk like that, it's a life changing experience. And one of my nicest experiences I ever had was with the Autobahn album. And I came home from work, and the highway was super congested. I was like almost an hour stuck in traffic, like really crawl speed sometimes, just, not even middle of the highway, not going anywhere. If someone was walking there, would have just, passed me by. And I was just like so just wasted by the time I got home, like super wasted. So I turned on the stereo and I put on the Autobahn, which means highway. So I wanted to experience the contrast of being stuck in the highway to listening to the music of the highway. And it was a religious experience. I cranked it up, cranked the volume up, and I was dancing in the middle of the room to Kraftwerk. Nelly thought I was nuts. So, actually, she didn't say anything, but she looked at me like, what's going on with him? She was in the kitchen making food, and I was just like in a trance. I totally in a trance, just absolutely unimaginable. And that was actually my worst copy of Kraft. I have four copies of the Autobahn. This is the one that has the Autobahn sign, the blue and the white colors on the cover. It's absolutely the worst copy, and the system was that cold, and even that gave a transcendental experience. And and that one you can have when your system is able to handle uh, this sort of clarity, that it can give you a full range experience in the low end, in the high end, and the SPL you don't have limitations. And I'm not talking about listening to the music loud to burst your ears. Your ears are not bursting because of high SPL. Your ears are getting damaged or you are getting listening fatigue because of distortion in the sound. You can listen to 100 plus dB SPL without any listening fatigue if it has no distortion in it. And let me repeat this again. If your system has no distortion in it, you can listen sustained 100 plus dB SPL without listening fatigue. Sometimes I can do that, like crank out Kraftwerk or whatever tremendous bass, tremendous SPL, feels like the house is blowing to pieces. And after that, when I stop, I can really like put on music like whisper soft, and no problem, no ringing in the ears. Next day I woke up, no ringing, no fatigue. I can talk to Nelly without raising my voice. I understand what she's saying after the music has stopped. And and the ringing and the fatigue and everything is because there is distortion in the sound that you do not yet identify consciously as distortion, but your brain tells you that something is not right because it's hurting my ears. And your ears are trying to protect themselves by closing down the muscles that give access to your little bones, which help the transmission of the sound. And those inner ear muscles, when they are just cramped after a while, they become fatigued, and then it manifests as a physical pain that can last for many days, and also can get to the extent of turning it an actual physical injury, physical problem. But that's not triggered by the sound pressure, by the volume, but it's triggered by the distortion components, because your brain has to do tremendous trillions of computations on the sound. And if there's too much distortion, it means your brain gets overloaded. And and it is our lives during evolution depended on it, that we can hear. And especially when there's so many things going on, then your brain wants to deal with everything, because then it's always a life and death scenario in real life. When there's a lot of sound coming at you normally, that was always because there was maybe a catastrophe going on around you, lion roaring and attacking and mauling you, or a war where the clans crash together, and then you the ability to identify where the precise sounds are coming from, where the danger is coming from, that meant the difference between you staying alive and letting your genes and your auditory system inherited by your progenitors, or just dying out if that wasn't working. And now, when we listen to loud music, the brain still thinks that if it's too loud, it means that I need to be processing it much more accurately because my survival depends on it. And if there's distortion on it, then your brain has to overwork. And after a certain point, it cannot do it because you are depleting your neurons in your brain. And that's why your inner ears have to shut down to limit the amount of information that's going to your brain centers to get processed. And that's why. So that's how you know that there is distortion in the music, that your inner ear starts shutting down. And that's not from the SPR, that's from the distortion. Usually there's also a codependence with it, that as we push the SPL, then we get the more distortion because the amplifier can't handle it. Loudspeaker driver, the cone, the suspension, it can handle it. Cabinet can handle it. And that's why it adds up. The distortion creeps up when the volume creeps up. But if you have tremendous distortion at lower SPR, your inner ear will still shut down. You can have a really bad stereo, even if you don't play it loud. You play it like a medium level, and your inner ear can still shut down. It's not because of the high SPI, but it's because of the insane amount of distortion that's present in the high frequencies, especially like 2-3 kilohertz and up, 10 kilohertz, like the 10 kilohertz plus region. That's what the brain uses for the really fine location of acoustic space. And if there's distortion there, that's really taxing the ear. And that's what really leads to damaging permanently your ears. And it's not just, you can blame it on the SPR. What else? I think that's it for now. And and if your system is able to play this type of music like trance or whatnot, um, then it's a sign that it can play anything. So let me know what you have experienced, um, and have an awesome day. Bye bye.